Well, gentlemen, it's been about a week and a half since the men's retreat, and I couldn't be more excited to just come back and report back and encourage you and to say thank you. Thank you for the sacrifice and the commitment you made and the time you put into being there at the retreat. And thank you for allowing me to be there. Always a joy to be with you. Thanks to Stephen and Kirk and all the leadership there as well. But I want to follow up with you and just challenge you and encourage you again. You got great instruction and direction and inspiration from Mike and Randy in the evenings. And as we talked about in the mornings during our devotional time about not just the what but the why. In a unified form, we talked about the practical outworking in our work and in our health and our bodies, and as we go about our days, the motivation of the gospel. And one of the points we talked about was the lost son, the prodigal son, and how really in Luke 15 we look and we see the prodigal father, the prodigal God, that he was lavishly extravagant to the point of wastefulness in his response to us. And we talked about remorse and repentance and renewal, revival, reform, and how that's going to be worked out. But let me encourage you. At the end of the retreat, Kirk left a challenge. The leadership there said who he would like to be discipled, because they've gathered guys who have stood up, been trained, and are dedicated in making disciples, because that's what the gospel calls us to. And there were a number of you men who stood up and said, I'd like to be discipled. I want to encourage you that after a week and a half, like any marathon, when the gun goes off, it's all fun and games. And about mile 4, 5, 6, then mile 12, and so on, we kind of sometimes lose our pizzazz. I just heard from Darren Stokel this evening about the kickoff yesterday to the 33 series. Now there's over like 24 guys, I think, signed up, even more. And my encouragement to you is those who stood up and want to be discipled, and those who sat down and are considering being discipled, go back and look at the motivation of the gospel. And then I'm going to challenge you to go back to Luke 14. Now, I don't have time to get into that whole sermon, but Jesus doesn't talk about just the motivation of the gospel, and that would call us to then be disciples of Christ, to follow Jesus. In Luke 14, he talks about the cost of discipleship. That's one of the paradoxes of Scripture, that all salvation is free in the sense that there's nothing we can do to earn that. We accept that. And yet to be a disciple of Christ will cost you everything. So it's free, and yet it costs you everything, but I can tell you this, it's worth it. It's worth it. And so consider the cost of discipleship. Consider what is the banner of our lives in regards to this Scripture and this truth. Men, I'm praying for you all. There's more than several avenues to get discipleship on Saturday mornings, on Thursday mornings, and other opportunities. I'm going to challenge you and point you back to hold each other accountable, be praying for each other, and serving one another. Thanks again for this time to be with you. I love you all, and I'm praying for you. Thank you.